Hello and welcome to LSE Impact, your weekly roundup of the politics from the UK and around the world. Today, I, Tony Richards, will be giving you a summary of the latest austerity marches, the recent US presidential debates, and the UK party conferences. This weekend saw protest against the government's austerity programmes, drawing thousands of students, teachers, nurses, and many more out to voice their opinions. LSE's own SAB officers had this to say.
I think it's really important that we join the Trade Union Congress in marching against austerity. There's over 1 million young unemployed people right now, so as students' unions, it's part of our business. We're a public institution. There's been brutal public cuts to our services right now.
And it's worth pointing out this is a march against austerity, and yet despite the fact that we've had cuts to welfare, cuts to education, effective cuts to the healthcare service, we aren't having austerity because the government is just incapable seemingly of having a decent taxation policy.
Many protesters voiced their concern about the proposed cuts.
And I want Britain to be about stimulus.
But I think we need an alternative.
I think it's great to see so many students out marching with the trade unions.
Actually, I want to have the chance to be able to be employed, as opposed to languishing on the dole. You know, if you have people in work, they're a lot more useful than out of work.
They band us together, they show us that we're not alone in fighting for what we believe in.
I can't ignore us forever, can they?
I think the government policy has everything to do with destroying the public sector. And in that sense, it's working remarkably well. Remarkably well.
Well, it's fantastic to see so many people here. I'm marching today because I want us to focus on jobs and growth, not austerity. That's what our country needs, particularly the 1 million young people who are out of work. Marches make a difference because they give people the opportunity to speak up and they show that the government's out of touch. This march is on behalf of the majority of people. All the polls show the majority of the British people want a change of course.
Across the pond, President Barack Obama made a lively comeback in rounds 2 and 3 of the presidential debates against his Republican rival, Mitt Romney. After a debate before our academic term, which was considered by many as disastrous for the incumbent President Obama, this was seen as a much-needed boost for his campaign. The second debate was an explosive display between two men divided both on policy grounds and, as far as I can see, personally as well. It was so fierce, they got into each other's throats about every minor detail, even about each other's pension plans. But Obama delivered the knockout blow in that particular tussle.
Mr. President, have you looked at your pension?
You know, I don't look at my pension. It's not as big as yours, so it doesn't take as long.
Obama pressed the advantage and went on the attack, going straight for Romney's jugular by referring to a recent blunder during a funding meeting.
But I also believe that when he said behind closed doors that 47% of the country consider themselves victims who refuse personal responsibility, think about who he was talking about.
A week later, in the third debate, Obama pulled off yet another winning performance in the debate on foreign policy, which was to be expected from the incumbent who delivered the American people a conclusive end to the war on terror by killing Osama bin Laden. The president demonstrated that he had what it took to be commander-in-chief, albeit a light-hearted one.
But I think Governor Romney maybe hasn't spent enough time looking at how our military works. You mentioned the Navy, for example, and that we have fewer ships than we did in 1916. Well, Governor, we also have fewer horses and bayonets because the nature of our military has changed. We have these things called aircraft carriers where planes land on them. We have these ships that go underwater, nuclear submarines.
Obama's performance in the recent debates will be seen as a welcome boost for his campaign. However, with no clear breakthrough in the polls, and some polls even putting Mitt Romney in front, the question will be, is this enough to deliver Obama a second term? The saving grace for the Obama campaign is that in the state polls, Obama is still holding out. Party conference season this year kicked off with the Liberal Democrats and a heartfelt apology from Nick Clegg.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry.
The Liberal Democrat conference was plagued with this video on YouTube, and Clegg's speech was widely seen to have had little impact. Next came a surprise, as Ed Miliband delivered an impressive and well-received speech, using the term "one nation" a lot.
That is my vision of one nation. That is my vision of Britain. That is the Britain we must become.
Today, Ed was trying to bring the Labour Party support for a welfare state closer to a sense of national identity. It was well received by the media, and many commentators believe the speech has saved Ed Miliband's leadership. A week later, and Cameron took to the stage in Birmingham with his On the Rise speech.
Our job is to make sure that in this 21st century, as in the centuries that came before, our country, Britain, is on the rise.
The speech, much like Ed Miliband's, helped dampen concerns within the Conservative Party that Cameron wasn't fit to be leader, although to a lesser extent. When we take a look at the opinion polls, Miliband and Cameron have improved their own personal approval ratings. However, when we took a closer look at the opinion polls, it's Miliband and Labour who are a clear 10 points ahead of Cameron and the Conservatives, and that lead appears to be growing. A week later, and Conservative fortunes didn't get any better, with the Mitchell row exploding in Parliament.
But while it's a night in the cell for the Yobs, it's a night at the Carlton Club for the Chief Whip. Isn't that the clearest case there could be of total double standard?
Followed subsequently by his resignation, the Tory bad luck got even worse as a Twitter row exploded over Osborne getting on a first-class train without a valid ticket. Conference season started with a question. Can Ed Miliband be the next Prime Minister? It now ends with another. With terrible performance in the polls, negative public perception, and an emboldened Labour leader, how on earth can the Tories turn around their misfortune? With Boris Johnson waiting quietly in the wings, and some polls suggesting that he would fare far better as a leader, one can ask, how much longer will David Cameron's leadership last? The hope for Labour is long enough for the Tories to lose the next general election. This has been LSE Impact. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube and the Loose TV site. I'm Tony Richards, reporting for Loose TV. Thank you for watching.